First of all, thank you so much, everybody, for choosing to be here with us today. You might spend the next like 75 minutes to work, to spend time with family, or I see a lot of you spend time with nature, enjoying the sunshine and the breeze. But you are here with us, and we appreciate that, discussing very important topic today, teaching inner well-being and development. So my name is Tam, the moderator for today's session. I'm also the founder of M Purpose. We offer career coaching and system mapping training for aspiring changemakers. It's also always start with a belief I think we all share today that in order to drive positive systemic change, we start from within, from personal self-awareness, and then action and career choice will follow with clarity and powerful impact. I also collaborate with Catalyst now in research focusing on teaching inner well-being and social innovation in higher ed. And we interview like 16 professors across the globe, trying to understand how inner well-being and system thinking are taught. Actually, one of our participants is also our esteemed guest speaker today, Professor Constance. So I will talk more about that report and the launch later on. But I'm very excited about the diversity of knowledge and journey that all three speakers will bring to us today. From academic to public, private sector, we indeed have a buffet of how inner well-being is perceived from different angles, different stakeholders and key players in the impact world. So before we get started, I believe you choose to be here for a reason, whether you realize that something is definitely need to be improved in our sector, or you yourself also go through the journey of realizing the importance of inner well-being yourself. Whatever reason it is, just know that like it's important to be present in the session. I invite you to close any kind of unnecessary tabs. Take 3 deep breaths, breathe in, breathe out. Set your intention why you're here today. You can also share that in the chat with also your name, organization, and your LinkedIn profile as well. Okay. So I will introduce our 3 speakers today. We have Constance. Constance is Professor Associate Director in Innovation at Universidad Católica de Chile. Her work is focusing on fostering a culture of innovation and entrepreneurship within the academic community. She also equips students with key innovation competencies, and the co-founder of Brain Chile, a leading acceleration program for science and technology-based ventures. So Constance, thank you for being here with us. We have the second speaker, Pavithra. She brings with her a very interesting and impactful journey with Dream a Dream, an organization that focuses on empowering young people from vulnerable backgrounds to overcome adversity and thrive in fast-changing world. She began her journey as a participant and now as an associate director, leading a team of 50 plus and reaching over 10,000 young people through life skill-based programs. And we have Sarita, with over 20 years of experience partnering and development expert with UN, NGO, and private sector in Europe and Africa. She's also the founder of Sandy Solutions. She plans coaching, research, and international development to drive system change. So I really look forward to learning with and from you all today. So we will start with our first guest, Constance. Over to you whenever you're ready.
Hello. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Constance Fleet. I am the Associate Director of Research and Innovation at the School of Engineering of Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile. Because the context is important, I want to give a very quick overview of our university. If you can move to the next slide, yes. Universidad Católica is a private but very traditional university in Chile. It was founded in 1888. It's constantly remarked as top 3 Latin America, great number of students, over 35,000 students. It has 18 faculties, and I am here representing the School of Engineering. The next one, please. The School of Engineering represents like 20% of the students of the university, so it's a very huge faculty, and it has 11 very technical departments of different disciplines of civil engineering. And the next one, please. And if you go and check on the website of the School of Engineering, you may see that its vision and mission state that the School of Engineering seeks to train engineers of excellence, engineers that are innovators and entrepreneurs, that are ethical and human, and that transform realities and that design a better country. But next, how do we move from teaching technical disciplines to teaching how to be the change you want to see in the world, to teach to be that ethical and transformative engineer? Next. So the school from a long time ago has had different elective innovation courses and different social initiatives that were targeted like to a niche audience. But our vision was that if we want to create meaningful change, this cannot be optional. So we decided to carry out a deep transformation of our curricula to make it more international, more interdisciplinary, and embedding mandatory courses that wanted to drive this change. So, and additionally, we add some specialization tracks and some programs and resources to support innovative initiatives. So we created, we bring together the curricular and extracurricular activities, and we created what we call the integration of a visible and invisible curricula. That is a map that clearly connects different programs, courses, and resources to the students can continuously keep learning and moving and advancing in their innovative initiatives throughout their careers. So in the top part of the diagram, you may see all the courses that are, some are mandatory and others are elective, that want to promote innovation. And in the bottom part, you may see all the programs and resources that want to support innovative ideas. Now, in this presentation, I will focus in one mandatory course and in one extracurricular activity. So next. So the first initiative is the Research, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship course. This is a mandatory course which is taken by 500 students each semester. They take this course in the third year of the civil engineering career from different engineering diplomas. And this mandatory course immerses students in a highly realistic entrepreneurial experience. They are exposed to the complexity and uncertainty involved in designing and launching on science and technology-based innovative products or services. So they develop skills related to identify opportunities and lead innovation projects. Next. They need to develop during the course a science and technology-based project that address urgent societal and global challenges like healthcare, aging population, like access to clean water, climate change, cities of the future, biodiversity, natural disasters, etc. Next, please. So in this course, they work in team. They collaborate to identify problems and opportunities. They need to design and test solutions, innovative solutions. They need to build functional prototypes. They need to create and develop a business model that imparts viability to the project. And this process is uncomfortable, very uncomfortable, and difficult because there are no right or wrong answers. They realize during the process that it's not enough to think that your idea is good to work. They need to validate whether the problem is real, whether the solution solves the problem, and it solves in a way that works for the people around the problem. They need to validate if it can be built and it can be delivered in a sustainable way. They need to persuade others, take into account stakeholders, cost constraints. They must step out of their comfort zone and talk to different group of people. They need to discover the reality on the ground. And this process is tough, very tough. One day they fall in love with the idea of solving a huge problem. Then the next day they realize that there are many people trying to do the same without success. Then the next day they research and they find out a brilliant idea that can be applied. And the next day they found out that it doesn't work and that technically it's very difficult. Or it can be done like in a sustainable way. They can't fund it. So they are living like an emotional roller coaster. And to live that process, they support each other as a team, and they learn to collaborate to live all this process together. But also they are very strongly support of the teaching team. They are supported by faculties. They are supported by real entrepreneurs that work as mentors in this program. And very important that they are supported by teacher assistants that have lived the same process years ago. All of this teaching team has like an open door policy. So we are always open to talk and discuss during all the semester about the decisions being made, because this process is a lot about making decisions, and it's a lot about critical thinking, pivoting, and resilience. So they learn about all this resilience and critical thinking and everything about this experience. They live in their own flesh. Next, please. And additionally to the support of the learning team, they also have the chance to receive mentoring from our extended community. So our alumni, our graduate students, professors from different disciplines also give feedback and support to the teams in different points of the semester. So this course is the heart of the ecosystem, because not only it's a source of 100 ideas each semester, but because also it brings together all the community around teaching to our students about the experience of creating a realistic project. Next, please. So the learning outcomes are related to technical skills, but also transversal skills that you can see there. Next, please. And the contents of the course are related to different topics to try to cover these skills. Next. And I wanted to stop in this because I think this is quite different. Typically, these kind of courses and programs are very small and are elective, because it's difficult to carry out programs like this, like in a greater scale, and because usually it's not suitable for everyone. There are people that don't want to take this kind of program. But our vision was that this could not be optional, it should be mandatory. So the first step for us was that we wanted to give skills for students and to teach them to create projects that are desirable, feasible, and viable, so they can drive change in the future. But then that was like the first step. And then we start adding like ethical and and impact contents, so they can move from thinking about feasible projects to positive projects. So now we are moving to deeper reflection and deeper critic, so they can also add new restrictions and constraints to the process, but to start learning by experience how to push initiatives that can be meaningful for the society. Next one, please. And the interesting thing is that we carry out a study when the course is finished and about self-efficacy. And we can see that even when we have some students that love this course and it changed their lives, we have some group of also of students that hate this course because it's very overwhelming for them. But even though we have those two groups, almost everyone declared that they feel at the end of the semester more prepared to drive innovation and carry out projects of this kind of projects. And almost everyone declared learning benefits of the experience. Next, please. Even 32% of the students expressed that they want to continue working on their project or a new one. And they can do that with our invisible curricula that are the programs to support this. And next one, and this brings me to another experience. I will go very quickly. And that one, next one, please. It's the Bridge program. The next slide, yes. That is another initiative that is extracurricular for a smaller group that is not mandatory, but the students that want after the course to keep embedding in this new mindset. We have another immersion, but this time is in vibrant ecosystem around the world, where they spend 1 month like meeting entrepreneurs, connecting with networks, experiencing new ways of work, connecting with a new culture, learning about themselves, being alone in another culture, and trying to understand how to drive change. Next, please. Next one. And what is very interesting here is that the students create their own agendas for 1 month living there. So they need to identify what are their goals and interests, and they create their own agendas to try to take the opportunity as the better way they can do it. They learn to seek opportunities in new cultures. They gain insight from different work systems, from different technologies and industry. They learn to navigate life far away from home and to co-live with new mates. They get very empowered. So when they come back wanting to change everything. They learn and notice that they have the same talent as the people that live around the world. So they come back very empowered, very autonomous, proactive, and they want to be like to spread like a new culture in their communities. Next one. So we have 3 examples of groups that have lived this process and how they start with a project in a course, and then they learn to pivot and develop their ideas to try to move from a technical learning to an experience of life. I don't know if I think I don't have time to keep explaining the examples, but I will be happy to discuss this in the questions. We have like one recycle initiative. The next one is a system to prevent or detect the breast cancer in surgeries. And the last one is a team that pivoted very quickly in the pandemics to transform their project into a solution for the staff in the hospitals that were working to try to help people during the pandemics. So that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Constance. Very interesting. And just a reminder for everybody, if you have any questions for Constance or our next two speakers, Pavithra and Sarita, please feel free to put it in the chat. We'll have a very extensive Q&A so that you can discuss deeper into this kind of topic. Okay,
Thank,
so over to you, Pavithra.
thank,
Excited to learn about the life skill curriculum.
yeah, thank you. Thank you, Constance. I really like how the narrative is around, giving a lot of agency and freedom to young people. I really loved what you said about they learn to seek out, they learn to navigate the life while they have all your support. So I'm just picking from the same thread of what Constance Fleet just shared with us. Next slide, please. Thank you so much for having me as part of this panel. So I'm Pavithra. I work for an organization called Dream a Dream. A Dream a Dream works with young people who come from difficult background in being able to develop life skills and social emotional learning. Why we exist? We exist to empower young people from vulnerable background to thrive. Dream a Dream is a non-profit organization working to transform the experience of education for the 130 million children living in poverty in India. Our aim is to shift the purpose of education towards the idea of thriving for every child. Since 1999, it's been over 2 decades of the journey in the organization. Dream a Dream has mainstreamed life skills as critical approach to help children overcome adversity and learn to thrive. Today, the organization is transforming Indian education ecosystem through its programs, curriculum, pedagogical innovation, and development of holistic assessment framework, while also shifting the narrative around the purpose of education. Dream a Dream work spans in 6 Indian states, reaching over 5 million children through its strategic partnership with state governments, collaboration, and through other nonprofit organizations and funders across the India. Next slide, please. Yeah. So, I was actually sitting and reflecting from morning. How do I see this narrative around the need for the ecosystem to invest in inner well-being, especially when it comes to young people? When I was reflecting, I think the inner development is for young people. And then as I reflected on my own journey, and I felt they are fine the way they are. It is actually the ecosystem that need to reflect. And I keep going back to something that I learned in the nature is that how we cannot move from flower to flower and say, hey, this is how you bloom. This is how one has to do it. And this is where all the nutrition is being given. But I believe when we fix the environment, it's not just one or two, but it is the millions of flowers that would be able to bloom. And I keep taking that metaphor to the work that we do with young people, that the onus is not just on young people. It is actually not on them. It is actually around the ecosystem that works with young people. So I want to share some of the stories, the narratives that we keep hearing from our field and we experience in the work that we do with young people. We have one young person who actually walked to the center and said, people asked me to stop using drugs. And nobody asked me why I was using. I was thrown out of the college. Parents asked him not to come. And then, friends laughed at him, judged by adults around him. The question that I want to ask everyone is that if it is not drugs, then what are we replacing it with what this young person is going through? Next slide, please. I stammer, but no one wants to hire me. They assume I won't be able to cope up at work. The question that I want to ask here is that there's so many, there's so much of strength that each individual has, but society has its own way of filtering. And why should young people who have visible and invisible disabilities to be excluded from the opportunities that they dream or they desire. Next slide, please. I failed in academics and now I feel like I failed at life. It's like everything is over. I don't see a way forward. Why do we seed the narrative in young people? It is the marks, it is the score, it is the grade that gets them through life, and that's the definition of success in life. But is that really true? Why do we see this narrative in young people is one of the questions that I reflect as I look at this young person's journey. My schedule is packed. I don't have space to include life skills, social, emotional, well-being, learning during my periods. I do believe there is an urgency for us to facilitate the inner development work, the social well-being, the social, emotional well-being, life skills in young people. But why do we always look at it as after school? I don't think I can do while I do math. I don't think I can do while I do science or subjects. And the way we see this challenge, next slide, please, is one, young people, especially those who come from difficult background, face adversity, which is poverty, financial instability, lack of love and care when they are orphaned, neglected, abandonment, parental mental health issues, lack of space, safe place for young people to play and learning, lack of access to basic needs, which is food, clothing, shelter, caste and gender-based discrimination, the color discrimination, stigma around disabilities, feeling unseen, unheard, and undervalued. Plus, there is a frantic pace of change where there is rapid automation, AI disrupting jobs and industries, and there is huge gap between what young people are learning in education system and the time they come transition out. This drastic shift that has happened in the market, migration due to loss of livelihood, social and cultural shifts, impact of pandemic, urbanization, raising discrimination and hate speech, which is leading to young people being unprepared for life. And what we do at Dream a Dream is we integrate creative life skills and social emotional learning into our program, creating safe and caring environment where young people develop inner resources they need to cope up. It can be, healing from adversity, reversing adversity, exploring their identities, who they are, what is their dream, what is the strength that I have, what is the support system that I need, rewriting some of the narratives for themselves, for their family and community, building confidence and agency to shape their future. We believe thriving in life requires inner development, and education must place it at the heart of everything that we do in a world that is ever changing. Next slide, please. Our intent is to shift the mindset about the purpose of education to thriving, and the way we approach it is, next slide, please. Our approach to mindset shift is there are there are 12 focus areas. One is the direct impact program. That is the program that I work, and I am one of the graduates of Dream a Dream. I joined Dream a Dream when I was 15-year-old. There's a lot of challenges that I faced during my childhood because we're three girls. My father always felt insecure about life because there is no boy in the family, so he became alcoholic. And it's my mother who went out to work. At the age of 15 is when I finished my 10th grade, and I wanted to drop out of education system to support my mother. And that's when one of my friends said, hey, here is a dance program that's happening, so why don't you come? And that's where I met Vishal, who's the co-founder of Dream a Dream. And back in 2007, Dream a Dream was a very small organization. And I felt that I met the caring and compassionate. I mean, like when people, I mean, I experienced caring and compassionate adult at the right time, which is at 15. Till then, there was a lot of discrimination. People didn't want it to talk. The family abandoned us with the label that it's alcoholic father's children. I don't think they'll be able to do really well in life. So keeping all these experience and the journey that I had at Dream a Dream, I managed to go for evening college. Morning, I try to look for opportunity to support my mother, support my both the sister. And that's how my journey in Dream a Dream started. And when I finished my graduation, it is the pause that I took in being able to ask myself, if this is what people from my community are going through, how do I look at strengths in my story in being able to facilitate this journey for a lot of the young people? And that's how I continue to work in the direct impact program in Dream a Dream. It is a program that works directly with young people. We used to facilitate after school life skill program, but this is the first year where we have fully transitioned to work with the whole school transformation program, because we believe it shouldn't be after school life skill program, but how do we work with teachers to shift the classroom practices? What is the journey that we have to make in being able to understand the journey that the school leaders are making? Because we do believe if there is a mindset shift in the school leaders, there's so many aspects that shifts in the school. So that's the project that I manage. And then there's also system demonstration work that we do across the 6 states in India, transforming public education system in partnership with the government through levers of change such as curriculum, pedagogies, teacher training, and assessment. And a lot of the insights that we gain from the direct impact program is also fed into the system demonstration work. And then there is building the field, which focuses on shifting dominant narrative towards thriving as the purpose of education by weaving together people, places, voices supported by high impact research, which we facilitate through research, narrative building, and weaving work. Thank you. Next slide, please. So the role of caring adults in helping young people thrive is to truly listen to children and validate their feelings with empathy. Often we jump into the solution. I need to mentor, I need to give them the solution, but we believe, just by simply listening to them, they are capable and able of making informed decision in life. But as adults, how do we center our role in being able to listen to the experiences that young people are having, also in the work that we facilitate in education ecosystem? One caring, compassionate adult and non-judgmental adult can drastically change child's life's outcome. And I am one of the examples, and I think it's been, as I said, it's been 2 decades. There's so many facilitators, who have passed on this work generation after generation in the work that we facilitate, accepting children as they are, because change begins with acceptance and not judgment. Understanding our own intersectional layers and how they shape our relationship with young people. How do we also introspect on some of the privileges that we have, so that we are aware of it when we are shaping our relationship with young people? As adults, we need to adopt a strength-based lens to support the well-being of children and youth. Next slide, please. Some of the practices and tools that we use is experiential based curriculum, art based curriculum, mindfulness practices, check-in, the warm-ups, the energizer, the facilitation technique approach. As I said, one of the lens that we use in our work with young people and teachers is also to bring the strength based lens. Like, why somebody is so naughty, but then how do I, rather than saying you're naughty, you should be in the last bench, or I would want to complain, can we actually look at the strength that this young person has in being able to shape them positively? And we also contextualize each of the session that we facilitate with young people, because it's the different community, caste, gender. In each batch, we have, diversity in the session. So how do we take that into consideration and not really go after the curriculum? reflect, debrief, and celebrate. And also there are pauses and time for stillness, in being able to pause for self-regulation and focus. And we do it through a technique called Take 5 technique. Next slide, please. Some of the resources that you can access is, do visit the link that is being shared on the chat to learn more about the life skills curriculum that we use in our work with young people and teachers and the ecosystem. We also use life skill assessment tool, which is standardized and published, and also social emotional well-being scale to understand the progress of young people. Next slide, please. Yeah, some pictures from our work with young people and teachers. Thank you.
So much, Pavithra, for not only sharing your personal story, the journey of Dream a Dream, but also we can totally see the passion that's shining through your voice, through your face when you talk about this kind of topic. So, for the future of millions of flowers to bloom, right? We are here today to talk about that topic. So, I'll pass it on to Sarita. Excited to learn from you as well.
Great, thank you. And it's such a pleasure to be here, and really excited to see so many people who work in sort of collaboration towards your social change. I noticed that in the chat, since that's my space. Also, thank you for these amazing programs that we've heard about. I'm coming from a very different sort of lens and space. And so if you can go to the next slide, I'll just tell you a little bit about myself and where I'm coming from, because I think it shapes what I'm going to talk about today. So I am a pracademic. I work in both practice and academic spheres. My focus is on collaboration for socio-ecological impact. I've worked in public health. I've worked a lot on HIV. I've worked on gender-based violence, and I've worked in many different sectors and countries. So I worked for the UN for a long time in Southern Africa. And and all of this has shaped. I worked as a partnership advisor myself, and that's what led me to actually do my PhD on cross-sector collaboration, which I'll speak about a bit later. But now I have very much what's called a portfolio career. So my little consultancy, Sandy Solutions, I work through, but I work with all these other organizations, many of which focus on systems change and on building leaders who can drive systems change. And my main scope and space of work is helping individuals, organizations, and partnerships to actually do their work better and more effectively. So that's like the me on paper. But if you can show the next slide, who am I really? And the reason I show this slide and I want to share it with you is because when you're working in systems change, when you're working in collaboration, you really want to know who these people are, because in the end, we're connecting as people. So I'm a dancer. I used to be a ballet dancer, and I still dance a lot today. And I was really excited to hear, Pavithra, when you said it was a dance program that you went to. I also have some colleagues on the call, colleagues who I know love to dance. So really happy to see people here. I'm really about human and connection between people, and I study the ancient Indian philosophy of Vedanta, and that's actually part of why I was invited to speak today. So I wanted to just share that for those reasons. I'm looking forward to hopefully trying to build more dance into my actual work and into my teaching, but watch this space. We'll see where that goes. But on the next slide, I talk about who I actually work with. So I work with individuals, organizations, and partnerships. I work with different clients now, like, for instance, big philanthropies like Wellcome Trust or the Gates Foundation. I work with big research organizations that work on food, land, and water systems. I work with the FAO. I work with big NGOs. And I work at multiple levels. And what I keep seeing is that it's the mindset of people that might often hinder collaboration or hinder the impact that they're trying to seek. And as Pavithra said, the individual can work on themselves and do their own work, but they're in a system and they're in an organization and they're in a process, and it's very difficult. And so what I also see is that those who I'm trying to, I work with people to support inner work and inner development for external change. But I also see that those who are incredibly progressive and maybe advanced on their journey, they encounter setbacks, and it becomes very hard. And change work is hard. And so because of their strong drive for impact, they often become jaded, disillusioned, burnt out. And I imagine that some of you who are on this call see that as well. So I find, if you can go to the next slide, that people are essentially working in this context of tension and paradox, where the urgency of the issues that we're trying to focus on wants us to act really quickly. And so that might be even in our organization or in a certain country or locality. But the time that it takes to really understand the problem, and I think Constance was telling us in her coursework about, they think they know what they need, they come up with this great solution, and they see that it might have been already done. Or so there, you need to take that time, and you need to take that intentionality to really dive deep to understand what are the problems that we're trying to focus on, who needs to be involved, which stakeholders, and I like that you said that you're working on stakeholder analysis, et cetera. How can we respond inclusively? And even within ourselves, this tension can lead us to become frustrated, right? And so what follows now from in my presentation is an excerpt of a session that I recently facilitated with two colleagues who work on the Embedding project, which is about embedding sustainability into the private sector. And we led this session for a network of sustainability professionals. And the reason I'm sharing this is to kind of show you how we go about trying to build inner awareness and also strengthen well-being among these people who are trying to really do very, very tough work. So the next slide, just to show, I want to talk about the challenges of leading social change and how we can help ourselves to restore ourselves and make sure that we can sustain ourselves as we're trying to lead social change. So the next slide says, change work is not easy. And my colleague Cecile has done research on this. She's looked at privileged insiders. So I told you I'm an academic also, so I bring in some academic lens. She did some research on privileged insiders who are working in companies, and they're trying to shift their companies to a more sustainable direction. And what she found was, it's very challenging and emotionally difficult because they're working against the grain. The organizations are often very vested in the status quo. They face internal constraints, power dynamics. The pace of change might be very slow. They're not very well supported. And they have this split identification where, they identify with their company, but then they're also really invested in these sustainable impact goals. And so it's hard, right? It's really, really hard. And they have this emotional up and down. The next slide shows how you have this motivation that is coming from your sense of purpose, passion, and meaning, and you're really trying to implement your positive vision, but then you're in this system and in this organization, which you become emotionally depleted because you're facing so many obstacles and internal doubts, and you're pushing. And so this question is like, how do you do this, right? Because it can become very hard. And so there's this notion that you need both perseverance and resilience. And these are two different things, actually. The next slide shows that perseverance is the ability to sustain your engagement, remain determined and patient, even when efforts take a long time to bear fruits, right? It's hard. You need to persevere. But resilience is the ability to rebound when you've had serious setbacks. And you need to have this capacity to regenerate and renew yourself, even when you're confronting adversity and finding hope and meaning. So you need to be able to find these two elements of capacity and build your capacity in this space. And so, but understanding that you need both is already the first step, right? And recognizing, okay, I'm able to persevere, but I'm not very resilient, or okay, I'm resilient, but I'm done, I'm tired. And a lot of people actually leave organizations when it becomes too much. So what I want to share next is some strategies and behaviors that we propose, and that as a coach, also like Tam, I'm also a coach, that I help in my work with individuals, but also even organizations, to try and say, okay, how can we persevere? So to share this, the first thing I want to share is a quote. So this quote, yeah, it's hard, but that's cool. Hard's not bad. You learn, you grow, it gives meaning. So this quote comes from one of my PhD respondents that when I was doing my research. And my research was, so this is Harold. And for me, Harold was a social catalyst, social change operator, if there's anyone I know. He was working for a pharmaceutical foundation in South Africa. And he was very determined and committed to drive better health outcomes in township communities across the country. So his pharmaceutical foundation was engaging in a partnership with the government, with the health department, an NGO, and a pharmaceutical company that he was part of. And it was one of 4 partnerships that I was studying for my PhD research. And my question was, how do people sustain their commitment to these very complex social impact partnerships? And so over 3 years, I studied 23 people working in these partnerships, 4 partnerships, and observed them and interviewed them. And on multiple occasions, I was, checking in with them to try and understand what's going on, because there's lots of adversity that you encounter in these collaborations. And those of you who are on the call who said you work in collaborative contexts, I'm sure you've had many challenges, and because it's not easy. But what I found, and this is what led me to this realization that partnering is also like a dance, because you need to engage with your partners also in a way which is very mindful if you're going to do it well. Because I found that the individuals in their organizations were stepping in, they were stepping aside, they were stepping away, depending on what was happening in the partnership. And this led me to develop a very complex theoretical model, which I'll show on the next slide, of 2 archetypal partnership commitment pathways. But don't worry, I'm not going to go into this because this is very long and heavy and complex. But what I want to center in on is this process, this intentional reflective process that I found in Harold and several others who were like him. And what it really consisted of was they had this ability to step back when things got difficult. So if you can show the next slide. Stepping back was basically reframing, reflecting, and then engaging in some intentional inner work, actually. So, and it was so critical because it enabled them to actually step in. And when challenges were happening, it enabled them to step in. So what was stepping back? So the next slide, the first thing of stepping back is actually self-reflecting. What just happened? Why did I get upset? What is going on here? What do I know about this situation? And a big part of it, if you go to the next slide, is actually quieting your ego. Now, this is something that I share this slide with students when I'm working with them in a master's program on management, where they're quite, cocky, strong management students. And I try and make them aware of the ego and how the ego can get in the way when you're trying to collaborate. And I'm looking at Pavithra because this is this cobra that's coming out of the basket. I'm half Indian. I remember when I was a child and I would go to India and you see these cobras coming out of the basket and then you can actually put them back in. And so for me, when I notice my own ego coming up, I feel almost like I visualize, oh, it's this cobra that's coming up. That is, I'm starting to feel triggered. I'm starting to feel frustrated. And it's not even only the individual, it's also the organization. Right? Because organizations also have egos, and organizations are also very much, oh, but it's about me and it's my organization and I'm part of this partnership and I want the reputation and I want the credibility, which can be very detrimental. So quieting the ego is a very important first step. And in my research, I saw that Harold and others like him intentionally did that. They would say, it's not about me, it's about the partnership. The next thing was to actually understand where you are. So I put this slide because I'm using funny images just to keep you entertained, but it's also because often you are this sole older penguin in this big sea of others who don't really get you, right? So you need to understand, where are you? What is your situation? What are your constraints? What are your opportunities? And what's your contribution to the situation at hand? If there's a challenge in your partnership or in your collaboration or in your process that you're working with, how did you contribute to that? And so being really self-aware about that. Then the next step is to actually engage in what's called in the literature perspective taking. So understanding, where are they? Where are the other colleagues that you're working with, the other partners? And really try and put yourselves into their shoes. What's happening with them? Why are they engaging that way? What are their interests? What are their constraints? What are their opportunities? To really understand where they're coming from. And that requires a lot of humility, because you need to be able to say, okay, we look at the world differently. And coaches, we always talk about how everyone has a different lens to look at the world. And it's very true. And when you can sort of understand that, you have a much better possibility to work collectively with others. The other thing is to really understand who are your allies. So this was something that I found in my research that I find also in the work that I do. For instance, when I'm working with some change agents and organizations who are just really struggling, if they don't have any ally internally or externally, it becomes very lonely. And so it's very hard to drive that change. And you need to be very aware of that. And if it's a moment in time where you don't have an ally, you may need to slow down and just be aware of that and take that into consideration. So you might need to change your narrative, shift gears, whatever needs to happen. Then the next thing that's really important, and this is for everyone, and I think this is something I'm sure that you, Pavithra, think about as well, and also Constance, is this idea of teaching people how to navigate their triggers and how to understand what's going on, what's happening in their body, labeling it, attributing it, evaluating it, and then choosing how they're going to act. Because we see so often that it's actually because of these spontaneous reactions that things go awry. And the last point on that, on the next slide, is really about coming to terms with the fact, and this is something that comes from Vedantic philosophy, about the fact that knowledge is taken, not given. So at certain stages, when you're a change maker and you're trying to drive change, the individuals or the organization or the country or the government or whoever you're working with, they may not be ready for it. They may not be receptive. And you can keep banging on that wall, but if you keep banging the same way, you're just going to drive yourself crazy. So it really is this idea of understanding that knowledge is taken, not given, and it's a two-way street. So the last thing that I try and work with people, and I do it myself, obviously, is that you need to embrace this change journey also as a dance. And that if, we talk about social change and change, a journey. When you say journey, you're trying to get somewhere. But if you say it's a dance, then there's fast parts, slow parts, highs and lows, and you can learn from every aspect of that dance. And so that's why dance is, running metaphor throughout my entire talk here, but because it really helps us. So much is in the reframing. And so the last thing I want to leave you with is, in my work, I've developed sort of this idea of actions and attitudes which should help you to reach alignment of your passion, purpose, and profession and potential. So on the next slide, I think what Constance and Pavithra are talking about is helping these young people to get to a space where they're working in a way which is aligning their passion, their purpose, and their potential. And where I try and help is to engage in supporting organizations and people to reflect, reframe, and resource themselves, while also maintaining these attitudes of patience, perseverance, and poise. Because the patience is not only with yourself, but it's also with your system and your processes. And as Pavithra was saying, everyone you're working with. Perseverance, we spoke about the need for that. And then the last thing that I've added on is this idea of retaining poise so that you can navigate even when things are tough and not get too rattled, because that's your well-being. Because if you're too rattled, you're not going to be able to manage. And on the resourcing, so this is the really important thing. I think that there's a real dearth in people who resource themselves enough and who understand that resourcing yourself and restoring yourself is not a luxury or reward, but it's actually an important biological, emotional, relational need. And if you're working in this space, you need to really know what resources you and what restores and revitalizes you, because otherwise, how can you keep going? So this is just an excerpt of what me and my two colleagues, we shared with those who work in sustainability. I hope it resonates with you. But that's my question for you. How are you resourcing yourself? And I hope you are. Thank you.
So much, Sarita, for showering us with a lot of the insights and food for thought. So we have about 10 minutes for Q&A. I would love to start a question that maybe resonate with a lot of the people, as well as all of the three speakers that we have today, is what kind of issues have you seen impact professionals in your areas, in your space, struggle with internally the most?
In the work that we facilitate, it's mostly that the system is something else. It is not me. But we believe, we call it as 3 I's, right? It starts with individual, it shows up in interpersonal, and then it becomes an institution. Especially in the work that we do, most of the time teachers are like, I'm fine, I want to do this, but I don't think I'll be able to do because this is what the leader is saying. But we're like, even as teacher, there is a lot of privilege that you have. There is power that you have. But how do we harness that? So often, also when it comes to systemic transformation, system transformation, the answer is, I am aligned, but it's somebody else. The system is something else. But I believe it starts with me. And as Sarita was talking, I was reflecting that even though I'm here talking about inner development, I do feel there's already so much that is polluted within me. So am I taking that pause? Am I spending time in being able to inquire the work that need to happen internally? The bias that I have about, for example, if it is about a gender, then it shows up in my interpersonal. So then it's from me to then it is with 10 people and all of us become one institution. So the challenge that I have faced is, it's not me. I don't think it'll happen from me, but the system is somebody else. Somebody has to come and make that shift. So I believe the system that we want to shift is also the system that is living within us. And that is the inner work that we have to do, just to ensure that we are not continuing to pass some of the traumas that we carry from generation after generation.
Another dancer here also to say that we three are related to dance.
Oh, nice.
I think I can recognize different things that struggle our students in this process. I think the first one is that I think they jump into a project without really thinking if they are related or motivated to that idea. It's like they go quickly to one problem or thing that they think it may be good to solve, but then if you don't have the motivation, then your work will be like difficult to carry out if you don't have the passion. So I think that maybe they jump too quickly without really thinking why. The second thing I think they struggle is like to think to recognize that it's not only about your point of view. We always talk to them and they think that what they are doing is good for the others without trying to understand the point of view of the other. So then when they advance in trying to implement their idea, they notice that that they are solving or doing things that is not what people need. So moving from other perspectives is like a work that you need to do, and you need to talk, and you need to observe people, and that's like the very difficult part, because it's like going out of your ego, what Sarita was saying. And the other thing is that I think the teams it's because you have different rhythms of the way you want to carry out this, and different levels of passion. So usually you are in a team and there is one that wants to do everything today with all of his energy, and the other part of the team is not like in the same pace, and that usually gives like a setback of some kind of deception, and it's difficult to deal with that. So usually, for example, it happens a lot in our course that when they finish the course, it changes the teams. So there are two, they are 5 initially, and finally there are like 2 that go and seek other people to go to continue their idea after the course.
I don't remember what the question was, Tam, but I think my colleagues have covered it very well.
I think it's more of like what kind of issue that you see that professional in your space struggle the most internally. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, no, I think that what I find is, since I work with people in organizations primarily, is that they might be shifting their mindset and they might be ready to drive change, but then they're constrained by the systems. So, big UN organizations, for instance, they know they need to collaborate differently, or they know they need to work in a different way, especially like more locally driven work or whatever, but then their systems don't enable them to do that. And that's very frustrating. So it's like, in addition to having different speeds for which, individuals in a team might be functioning, as Constance was just saying, it's like different teams might move quicker than the systems that they're embedded in, especially in these big organizations. So I think that's what I see. Or for instance, they don't walk the talk, right? So what gets frustrating is like an organization may be saying, oh yeah, we want to do X, and then they're still entrenched in Y because of their legal processes or, administrative bureaucracy, or because the inability to actually think outside of the box and say, what would happen if we did just throw everything on its head and change it, right? So I think, like, for instance, there's what I learned recently at a meeting I was at it was on changemaking. It was a global changemakers event of various partners in Berlin. And I don't know if you guys have heard about the Ringo initiative, which is like reimagining international NGOs. And what I learned there is that even though these NGOs had, signed up to shifting and doing proposals in a very different way and working differently with local organizations, they still couldn't manage to do it, even though they were trying to be the front runners, because their systems were limiting them. So I think that's what can be really frustrating. And then that leads people to just get very disillusioned. And that's hard.
That brings me to the next question. I think some of our participants also asked is in terms of like, okay, now we see that big picture of the importance of balance between like inner well-being as well as understanding the resistance in the system. How do we help them see the situation as not hopeless, but more able to still carry on the work toward the future and the change? How do we help young people to do that?
Are Constance or Pavithra going to respond? Otherwise, I can respond quickly. I think that it's about identifying small wins and small gains and trying to that's why I think self-reflection is really important. And so somebody asked about like what techniques can we use with people to get these perspective taking skills. I think it's building in self-reflection, and I ask people often, like, what are you most proud of in the last couple of months? Like, and so that they can remind themselves of what they have actually achieved, because it's an understanding that, it's not just one big milestone, it's actually small milestones and breaking it down and that kind of thing. So that to try and help people not to get too disturbed and to just be conscious and aware of the small things that you have achieved. So that's also where self-reflection is important. That's from my perspective.
Yeah, for us, it's also very important to declare that reflection milestone. It's not like you hope it happen in the process. You need to stop and make it like a concrete space of reflection. So, for example, we ask to the students to go and interview at least, 20 people. And then we reflect. It's like there were biases. Were you putting more weight on some opinion than other? And then when they presentate to us like their advances, we just do to them the key questions like how, why, where, what, that usually they are so like trying to do, then they don't stop to ask that basic questions like how, why. Like we ask them many why. And that moment is like a moment where I think they connect with their learning, and they were like, yes, of course, we need to go, and they go back and to talk again to people, and I think that they feel very motivated when they can see all the things that they have learned, like from a very primary source, and this is not something you read in the internet. It's like you saw that and you talk to people and you learn that from your experience. So then you have like a proper conversation with a lot of insight, and I think that is like motivate the students to keep moving, and because then they feel like committed to solve the problem because they have talked so much with the people involved in the situation that they feel like they need to try to do something to contribute.
Yeah, building on, I could not, agree more. While we do all of this, I keep going back to the work that we all need to do. While there is reflection, there is debrief with young people where the approach is also to not to tell, give advice, guide, but in being able to truly, as adult, how do I truly believe that the young people are capable and able, and all we have to do is to listen and validate. I think that itself creates a thriving environment for young people. I think some of the narratives is how young people are not future. You're not tomorrow's leader, but they are present, and their leadership is critical right now. And often we also tell we are the leaders and you are the learners, but leadership should be shared, and youth expertise is very, very critical in everything that we are doing. So how do we not also bring the narrative about you're here and we are here to tell you what is right, what is wrong. And it's not that we give them the voice. They already have voice. Our role is to listen and to be able to remove the barriers. Yeah.
Can I just add something there, Tam? Because there was a question about, like, it was from Rosie saying, how often the people who are working in partnerships, because just what Pavithra is saying for me is so resonant with what I work in, when you have like researchers who think they know everything and they want to go work with the global south and they think they know everything from the global, and that is the same sort of dynamic, right? So we're here to teach you, build your capacity, and I'm kind of like, well, who's building the capacity of the capacity builders, right? Because how do they know everything? So it's this sense of also recognizing, different sources of knowledge and forms of knowledge and wisdom and insight and everything. And that also requires, it's something that we need to do with our youth everywhere, right? And I think they're much more connected than the older generation, but there is still a lot of polarization. I mean, there's much more polarization now. So the question is, how can we take some of like the aspects that I think Constance and Pavithra are talking about and bring it not just for the youth, but for everybody. So I think that's what's important.
A positive sign is that we are all here today talking about passionately talking about the topic, and we have seen a lot of good like questions and answer, collaboration, and support in the comment as well, right? So that is something that give us hope that continue to do this kind of work. Unfortunately, we are running out of time for the Q&A. So if you have any further questions for our speakers, please feel free to reach out to them, and we'll make sure to have that connection going. Before I pass it on to Cindy, I promise you that I'll give you a little bit of details about the inner research launch. We'll actually launch the research at UN General Assembly this year, September 24, I believe, in New York. So the research at the beginning, it was really inspired by the need for a more holistic approach to social innovation and education, like how we can better prepare the next generation of change makers for social innovators. Like I said, we interviewed like 16 academics, and then the report contained 4 big main sections. We learned from them. the core areas of cultivating inner well-being. What exactly do we need to teach or create an environment for our students to cultivate that inner strength? The second is how do we equip students navigate through the complexity of social issues or the system they live in, and what role inner well-being play in that picture of driving systemic change. The third one, I believe, we talk about pedagogical approach, sharing resources, methods that educators are using all across the world to cultivate that inner well-being and system thinking. And the last one is why can't we move as fast as we would like, right? What are the challenges that the educators and institutions are facing? So those are things that we compact everything into that kind of report. So very excited to go through that in September in our official launch. And I believe it's going to be very beneficial for any of us practitioners, stakeholders. So really looking forward to deliver that report as well as make it accessible for everybody. So I'll pass it on to Cindy for the next.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you once again for the amazing presentation and the sessions. I have already added in the chat all the links for the upcoming sessions. So the first one is going to be the one on July 22nd with James Couch. He's going to once again promote is the second part of the session that we did in April. So you have already the links in the chat, and please join for the session. It's going to be James and Daniela going further on the principles of the book. Secondly, we have the session on deep listening. Again, it's another book launch from Emily Casriel. She's a journalist, and we are going to meet for that session on September 4th. On the sessions on the fundraising, as I have mentioned before, we have the two upcoming ones for this year in English on September and in October, and we are currently planning sessions in different languages, so it can be inclusive for all of you. And yes, more or less, we are going to share everything in the chat and in the email on the follow-up in case we have any other update on the sessions for Medium and the call of papers in case you are interested in reading the papers and publications on Medium platforms, or if you want to have a paper written by you and posted on our page. You also have the links in the chat. And also now most of the papers are available in 5 languages. So also trying to make that section inclusive as well. So yeah, thank you once again. Thank you to everyone who stayed until now and who listened to all of our speakers and asked questions. As I said, we will share the recording and the slides and the contacts of the speakers, so you can connect with their link with them through LinkedIn as well. So yeah, thank you, and we hope to see you again in our next session.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.